Welcome to Session 8 of the 21st Annual Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. NWIL's land acknowledgement is read at the opening and closing sessions. To view NWIL's land acknowledgement statement, please visit our website, nwill.org, under the Land Acknowledgement tab. The link will be placed in the chat. Today's date is September 16th, 2022. This session is entitled Everything You Wanted to Know About Developing a Communication Plan for Your ILL Service, but Were Afraid to Ask. And it is being presented by Gracia Gabriel. And my name is Pam Kindleberger, and I am the convener for this session. This session is being recorded with permissions from the presenter. Because they retain the copyright to the information they are presenting, they may choose to request its removal from public viewing in the future by written request to the NWIL committee chairperson. However, at this time, it is planned that these recordings will be made available once captions have been added. Attendees will be notified when recordings are available. To turn on live captioning, click on the CC link at the bottom of the screen and select Show Subtitle. If you have questions during the session, please use the Q&A function in Whova, and I will pose these questions to the presenter at the end of their presentation. When the presentation ends, please complete the post-session survey in Whova, located on the conference homepage. NWIL and presenters appreciate your feedback. That link will also be added into the chat. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Gracia, and she can tell us all about communication.
Thank you, Pamela. So I'm currently working at the University of Beira Interior Main Library, which is in Portugal. And I thank you all for being here. And I'm glad you share my passion about communication, especially in the ILL service. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk about the different stages of implementing a communication plan. And I know that it can usually help to boost information flux, which in turn will help to better answer our ELL users' needs. So basically, this has just three parts. One is a very, very brief introduction, and then we're going to go through all the stages of the communication plan, and a little bit in the end about the future of communication. So in the history of human communications, we know that the words community and communication, they have the same linguistic roots. So this is not just a mere incidence. It's because communication has been always about enhancing individuals' ability to relate to others. So whether we call today's society network society or cyber society or knowledge society, whatever we call it, we must understand that the ability to foster communication on a global scale and facilitate cooperation, teamwork and communication is essential in nowadays. However, we must take into consideration that even in today's elaborate means of communication, not always communication is effective. So this is why we need to plan the communication that we are doing. So why should we communicate? A few examples. So in terms of globalization, every organization needs to be interdependent with others to thrive or just merely to survive. Also because social relationships are greatly mediated by technology nowadays, and any organization must find different ways to communicate with their users, or their clients, or their patrons. Also because organizations that do not know how to communicate, they become irrelevant. In terms of the relationship with our users or our clients or patrons, the communication builds trust, assures that their needs are met. Why? Because we communicate and because we know what they need, and it diminishes greatly the need, the risk for obsolete services or products. And of course, we want for users to be involved in whatever it is that we do. There are also values demanded by users that need to be addressed and communicated, for example, social responsibility, environmental protection, etc. And we cannot communicate organizational image if there isn't an effective communication. So what are the advantages of a communication plan? So first of all, it assures that the best message uses the right communication channel to reach the targeted audience. So this is also important because it assures that the organizational focus is on users' values, their characteristics, their preferences, and their specific needs. And it's the only way to maximize services or products' strengths and minimize their weaknesses. And of course, it helps the diffusion of new services or new products that we can provide. Why? Because behind all our activities should be the intention to interact with our clients. So I know that ILL, it's not normally the best example for a library service that has a high interaction with library users, but we need to do this because we need to be able to communicate well and to hear our users. So let's dive into the communication plan, which has basically 3 stages. One of them is, the first one is diagnosis, the second one planning, and the third one evaluation. So the phase 1 is about getting to know what you can offer. So what services that you can offer, what products you can offer, who are your users or your clients, whatever you want to call them, what are their needs, and what are the best ways to communicate with them. So this is how you should begin. First of all, you should list all forms of communication that you already use. Take the advantage of the ones that you know that work, and research other innovative forms of communication. You should also list all targeted audiences, their characteristics, their needs. For example, the needs of suppliers are different from the needs of ILL users. And gather any statistical information that you can. For example, the number of users in social networks, any suggestions or even complaints. If you have questionnaires, what are the answers? Even the time spent by ILL staff in communication activities. Why? Because this gives you a best view of how much time they spend speaking to other people, whether it's through email or in presence, it doesn't matter. So how much time does your staff spend communicating? Then evaluate any person that does ILL in terms of skills. So sometimes you have people that already have skills in terms of communication, already did some course on communication, or they may need specific training. You should also study your context. So do, for example, a SWOT analysis, which is to find out your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, or a PEST analysis, which is to analyze the political, economical, social, and technological factors that can influence communication. Try to study how other ILL services communicate. We don't all have to invent the wheel all the time. So if you find another library with an excellent ILL service, with an excellent communication plan, just ask for it and follow it, because it has already proven to be effective. And then you should always be on top of the recent research on communication, marketing, public relations, because they can become useful. So this is just one example of what I did for my ELL service. So first of all, I measure how much time I spent in the beginning, because I've been recently assigned this, although I had done ILL in the past, here at the library where I'm working, I've just been assigned a year and a half, the ELL service. So in the beginning, it was mainly asynchronous communication, with a little bit of synchronous, which was mainly when people came to get their items. And today, so the next graphic shows that there's a lot of communication evaluation planning, and both asynchronous and synchronous communication has diminished a little bit, because in the amount of time that I spent, I also spend it evaluating and planning. Also, I gather in terms of numbers, what were the channels that were used. For example, both with the academic community and suppliers, it is mainly by email. So the great majority of interactions is done by email. But with academic community is also diverse. So we've got in presence, sometimes doing reference service, which I also provide. They also ask for items that they need, or video conferencing or telephone, a little bit, very, very small from Facebook or for posters, etc. And suppliers is mainly by email. So this is a SWOT analysis that I did for my service. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to say that in terms of strength, it's a high level personalization to DLL users. I do know that my main weakness is the fact that the service is not well known to the majority of the academic community, but that I have endless possibilities of cooperation within the university itself, within other universities, with other local, regional, national institutions, etc. And in terms of threats, the biggest threat is that the availability of online documents makes the service obsolete. So it's the main threat. So let's go to planning. So after we've done all this diagnostic, we should think about what are the outcomes. So it's like, imagine the roots of a tree. So we need to set goals in terms of communication. And for that, we need goals, strategy, we need a chronogram in order to achieve what we want. We may need a budget. We need to know the human resources that we need, and design a few performance indicators. So setting goals is not easy. And sometimes we have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what exactly are our goals. So I've come up with a few of them regarding the ILL service, within the library goals, within the university goals, within other institutions, within suppliers. So, and there can be many. For example, my main goal is to publicize the service in order to boost its use. It's what I want. I want people to use the service because they know it exists. So if they know it exists and they don't use it, it's because they don't need it. That's fine. But if they don't come to me because they don't even know that ILL exists, then it's a problem. But it could be that you want to increase the interaction with suppliers. It can be that you want to diversify the means of communication. It can be that you just want to verify from time to time if users' needs are still the same. Or it can be that within the library, you want to help reinforce the library's role supporting users' learning and teaching activities. Or, for example, it can be that you want to provide staff with new skills. It can also be that in terms of the university, you want to contribute to the mission of enhancing university services excellence. So these are just a few examples to get you started, but you really have to think about the outcomes of the diagnostic phase and exactly what you want with communication. Then in terms of strategy, you need to take this into consideration: who, what, why, in which channel, and how to evaluate communication. You need to know your target audience. So if you're targeting first-year students, it will be very different from researchers. So, for example, are there social demographic variables? For example, regular users, are their needs different from sporadic users? And what are you going to say? So is it a functional message? Is it a contextual message, a formative message, image diffusion? So what is the what? So what do you want to convey? And then what channel are available to you? Which ones are you going to use? Which ones are more used by suppliers or by library users or by ILL users? And which message is best for which channel? And then how are you going to evaluate? So what are the communication indicators that you're going to use to verify if your communication is efficient? Then you should have a chronogram, even if it's just as simple as this. You know, imagine that you start phase 1 in January and you end up in June when you go on holidays. So it can be something very, very simple, just to keep you grounded and to keep you where you should be throughout the year, or even if it's within years. Okay, so you should have a chronogram. Then think about what are your needs in terms of budgets. Sometimes the budget needs to be approved first, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So you need to think about that in advance. Sometimes researching suppliers is a bit difficult and it also takes time. So you need to think about it. So example, if you want to build a new web page for your service and you need to hire external services, whether it's for the web design or maintenance or even staff training. So you need to know the amount of time it's going to take and how much money you're going to need. If you need to train your staff, or if you need paid online surveys, or if you need to print materials. So you need to think about what you're going to need so that your communication plan works. Then in terms of staff, you need to think about if you should have a communication plan, if you have no permanent staff, or if the ILL is just extremely busy. Because probably it's not going to be very, very efficient. Even if you design it, everything really correctly, probably if you don't have enough staff to implement it, it's going to be difficult. Or if you have staff that cannot gather quantitative or qualitative information, so there's your plan will not work. Okay. So let's go through the last phase, which sometimes it's a bit difficult because not always is very easy to set evaluation. So evaluate how effective is your communication. But if you don't do it, it means that you have no way to know that you're doing a good job, or communication is effective, or you will have no way to adapt if you think that it is necessary. So in terms of evaluation, you can have two forms, a priori and a posteriori. So a priori is basically preliminary tests that you can do with a small group of people in order to correct potential flaws or in order to evaluate users' reaction. And a posteriori is basically quantitative or qualitative methods to verify the communication efficiency. So these are just a few examples. You can use any that you think are useful for your service. But for example, you can do for a web page, you can do a focus group to test the new web page. You can look for ways to improve the information architecture, explore information that can be added, or insourcing functionalities. With social media, you can have interviews to see which users use which platforms and why. Or, for example, even with the library space, you can monitor users' interaction with the physical space to find out a specific place where you can set an ILL desk, help desk, or just leave bookmarks or libguides. Then quantitative methods can be basically ELL statistics. So for example, you can gather information about the number of requests by type of media used, or the number of emails or messages or tweets or phone calls exchanged with library users. You can have, for example, the number of information demands about the service at the front desk, or even gather the time spent by staff in communication activities. With social media, you can get number of likes or shares or comments. With printed material, you can have number of items taken by library users. And with web pages, it's easier because we have a number of accesses, downloaded material, page clicks, etc., etc. And in terms of qualitative methods, you can have content analysis from written comments, whether in user satisfaction surveys, suggestion box, emails, etc. Or, for example, when the users ask for information at the front desk of the library, you can also have content analysis to find out precisely what they ask for. Or in terms of social media, you can also do content analysis of comments, ideas, even complaints that users have. So this is one example of how simple it can be. So I took the synchronous an asynchronous example because it's majority of communication is done through email, and I targeted users contacting the ELL service. You can target, for example, users within an institution, users outside the institution. You can even target it even more. So my communication goals with email was to make ILL users feel welcome. So provide clear, useful information about ELL. I wanted to keep them constantly updated on their requests, and after, in the end, request their opinion of the service provided. So what I did was to draft courteous and very friendly and clear standard email messages. I translated them into several languages so that it will be easier for me or any other person doing the ILL service to communicate. In the beginning, I requested frequent ILL users to comment on the emails to say, are they efficient? Are they accurate? So is the information complete? So did you understand everything? And I set a rule that my first email answering someone's requests should be within 1 hour of receiving it. So that is one goal. In terms of evaluation, I used the ILL users' comments on the emails that I requested. Also, I do some analysis, content analysis of emails where the message, any type of message, wasn't understood. So I want to find out why. And I measured the time spent to answer library users' first email. And then another example of synchronous communication. So I decided one day to go to the reading rooms and present the ILL to people there, just studying, or whether they were at a computer playing, it doesn't matter. So I decided to start that approach. So I wanted to build a closer relationship to potential ILL users, to increase the awareness about the service and provide practical information, and even take notes if users already had requests. I would take notes and proceed with the request. So it was basically a friendly talk. Sometimes we would talk about games that they were playing, or we would talk about their difficulties with the exams or with something else. So it was just a friendly talk. And I gathered the number of people that I've contacted. And since then, the number of requests as a consequence to that approach. And you can do this with any type of communication channel, with social media, with the telephone. It depends on how you communicate with your library users, but you can set this this kind of template for every form of communication that you want to use. As to the future of communication, well, it's very hard to predict. We do know that we have to be constantly adapting to new forms of communication. We have to be responsive to change, but we do not know if we're going to change permanently to just online communication. Right now we're doing a video conference. There are many other aspects like Second Life or Metaverse or social media that probably will evolve. Holograms are already being experimented on, so we may have holographic smartphones in the future, or holographic tablets, whatever. The augmented reality technology is already in use, especially in museums, but also in libraries, with the augmented reality glasses. Artificial intelligence, we already have chatbots everywhere, voice services. So there are many examples of some things that we can also use. I'm not sure about brain-computer interfaces. I'm not sure how that is going to evolve, but for example, Elon Musk already has a Neuralink brain chip. Not sure that will be a good idea, but you know, we'll never know how it's going to evolve. We do know that mainly we'll have to adapt, and to be constantly looking for where our users are, how they can communicate with us, and how can we, the best ways that we can have to communicate with them. Because otherwise, it's like I was saying in the beginning, services and organizations who don't communicate, they become irrelevant. So that's it. I hope you have a lot of questions, and Pamela will go through them.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. There are a few questions. A few people have asked, will your slides be available?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is, do you have any tips for resources for how to communicate better via email? I have often write and rewrite emails trying to get the tone right. How many exclamation points is too many?
So that's why precisely why I did standard emails and in several languages, so that I don't keep second guessing myself, because that also happens. Of course, if it's a quick question from a ILL user, for example, how much time shall I have to wait? So it's a simple question, and I don't need standard emails. But the majority, especially in the beginning, when the user contacts the service, it's important, very important, to have standard emails, because we want to treat everybody the same way. And sometimes we are more motivated in one day, and the other day we're a little bit more tired, and they should all be treated the same way. And sometimes we forget about information that is crucial. So I found out that having standard emails, I have them for suppliers, and I have them for users that for the first request, the first time that they contact the service. Then with time, I've built a file with things that are more usual. For example, when I cannot get a certain document, I need to send an email saying, my apologies, but this is not possible to find. So I also have a standard email. Or for example, when there's a budget for a certain document, I also have a standard email. Again, it's easier because with time we tend to change a lot, and sometimes we don't need to. Sometimes we just need to have a very good, standard, efficient, clear email that we use it all the time, and then we can adapt.
Okay, thank you. Somebody was asking, what was the quote again from the slide with the sheep faces?
Sorry?
The quote that was on the slide with the sheep on it.
Okay. So this one.
Yes.
So the more elaborate our means of communication, the less we communicate. So it's from an author called Joseph Boynton Priestley. And it basically means that, yes, we do have a lot of means of communication. And the question that I leave you is, do we really communicate? And that's why we need a communication plan, because otherwise we'll get lost and we don't know how well we are doing. I worked in another library where my master dissertation was about communication. And one interesting thing is that I did an analysis of how much time each staff member, and we were a team of about 50 people, how much time each staff member spent on communication. And one of the most interesting things that I found out was that the library departments that were supposedly communicating more with library users were the ones who had no evaluation, no planning whatsoever of communication. Okay, so if we happen to do a survey about communication in that sector, so it would be 0 answers because nobody was paying attention to how much time or how much communication they were doing.
Okay. Do you use automatic emails? I've been thinking of using that, but we can't get many direct emails.
No, I think they are not. Automatic emails are good in a library, for example, when you borrow a book and instead of giving a piece of paper, you send out an automatic email saying you have borrowed this book, or when you return it, you have returned this book as a proof. But that's it. I believe that in terms of any other services, one should be as close to our library users as much as we can. Even with suppliers, it's the same thing. So we do have standards, standard emails to make our job easier, and so that we can get the message through easier. But no, I do not believe that, especially in the ILL service, we should have that email sent by our software.
Okay. There was a couple of people who wanted to know what SWOT stand for.
SWOT means strengths. So within the ILL service, what are the strengths that you have? Let me find this. So, for example, normally within the ILL, it's a very personalized service. So it goes directly into the user's needs. So that's a strength. Okay. So, for example, if you have highly qualified staff with great ability for adaptation, that is also a strength of your service. Or, for example, normally within a university ILL, you have a diverse library user. So you have the academic community, you have other libraries, you have general public. So that is something that it's a strength. It's something that you have very, very good in your service. Then we have weaknesses. So what are the weaknesses of your service? In my case, it was because it's not very well known. And also because the documents, sometimes they have a very high cost. And because it's the ILL users that are supposed to pay for them, sometimes they don't follow the request because it's too expensive. So these are the weaknesses and the strength of the ILL service. Then we have the opportunities and threats, which are exterior to the service. The opportunities, for example, is we have diverse communication tools within social media, within Moodle, chats, forums, etc. We also have a great opportunity because from every service, ILL service that I've worked in, everybody in other ILL services are also very friendly. So it's a service where everybody is very friendly to each other, and that's an opportunity. In terms of threats, so for example, if documents increase in costs, for example, for my users, that will be a threat. So for example, if the British Library increases its costs, it's going to be a threat to my service because users will not be able to pay. And we as a library, we don't have money to cover it. Or for example, if imagine that from one moment to another, all databases make their articles available online. I don't know if users are going to come to us anymore. So that's an external threat. So strengths and weaknesses are within the service, and opportunities and threats are outside the service.
Thank you. The next question is, for face-to-face communication, do you have preferred method to bring ILL services to potential users in an organic manner? Sorry.
Well, I've tried that example that I provided, where I was going to the library reading rooms and was just approaching everybody. You know, if they were in a group, I would approach the group and I would talk to them. If it was a person that was studying alone, I would go to him or to her and I would talk about the ILL. So basically that's as far as I went, because actually I had no real very useful results because the majority of people in the reading rooms were degree students. So first-year students, second-year students. So I found out that they didn't need the ILL. They said, "Oh, okay, maybe when I do my master," or but with those students, I didn't get a lot of positive results. So I will have to adapt again to think about how am I going to do this school year, which is beginning next week, to focus on master and PhD students, because in terms of audience, they are the majority, followed by researchers or teachers at university. So I will have to think about that a little bit more on my own, to think, because mainly my communication has been through email. Even with marketing the service, it has been by email. And maybe I'm lacking in my service a more human component and face-to-face. I do have, however, because I'm also responsible for the reference service, I do try to market as much as I can during reference sessions, the ILL. So I also have that part, which is face-to-face communication. But yes, I do believe that I need to do more.
Thank you. One more question here. How many languages do you need to know at your workplace? Do you find it harder to communicate in other languages?
So, all right, I have Portuguese, English, and French. I speak them fluently. I also do Spanish and Italian badly. Badly. And I have the emails that I've talked to you about. I have them in Portuguese, English, and French only. So far, no other nationality has requested documents. So basically, between English and Portuguese, I manage in terms of writing. In terms of face-to-face communication, yes, I find that I need at least English and French and Spanish. Italian a little bit, but the majority of them, they speak Italian and I answer in English and we do okay.
Well, thank you. I have trouble speaking English, so that's great that you have that. I don't have any other questions, but I have a question. So when you were talking about in the diagnosis phase, what statistics do you look at when you're diagnosing what your communication plan should be?
All right. So in this phase, it can be like I said, a lot of things. So first of all, the most important thing is to know what communication you already use, and then go through what statistics can I have. For example, I use email. So what statistics can I gather from those emails? Okay, I use Facebook. So what statistics can I have from that, which is a very, very small part. Face-to-face communication, what statistics can I have from that? Okay, so when we are gathering the forms of communication that we already use, we have to already think about what we can extract from that. Okay, Then, for example, if we research a little bit more, then we can find out how other people deal with those statistics, because sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy to get, because it's communication. So I can gather the number of emails that I exchange with users. So more or less about 100 or 200 a month. So I can gather that, but that is just a number. I can say, okay, I have, imagine 200 emails, 30 phone calls. I have, for example, 2 video conferences, etc., etc. So I can gather that information that tells me, particular for that type of communication, how many do I have? And then I say, okay, so the emails are the majority. What am I going to do with the emails? Or, for example, imagine that you have video conferencing, but you want to enhance it, which is, we already are at the planning stage. So if you have very little video conferencing and you want to increase it, you have to think, how am I going to do that? So am I going to do a focus group to find out why people are not using video conferencing, or this is within the phase of diagnostic? Or am I going to send a survey to ILL users to ask, so why are you just using email and you're not using video conferencing? Okay, so it's a bit difficult to get a straight answer. Because each communication means that it is used in a different form. You cannot use Facebook the same way you use email. You can't. It's not going to work. If you have a preference for in presence, face-to-face communication, so you can't focus only on emails. So it depends on what you already have and what you want to have. So how are you going to change it? And also depends on what library users want. For example, imagine that you only use email and all of a sudden a group of students come and say, we want to use video conferencing. So you need to adapt, and you need to find out, do I have enough staff to have video conferencing? Or you want to use a forum, or you want to do a wiki, or whatever it is that you are setting as a goal. You need to find out if it's feasible in terms of staff, in terms of budget, in terms of chronogram. Maybe it's not feasible this year, but it will be next year. You have to find out if people that work at ILL can manage it. So, for example, I would really like to have a Facebook Messenger 24 hours a day available for students. It's not possible. I really wanted that, but it's not possible because I cannot be on Facebook during our office hours and do reference work at the same time and do training sessions at the same time and manage requests. I cannot, and I'm the only one working here. So it's a mix of what you already have, what you want to have, what users want, and the staff that you have, and how much they can, how much time they can spend in communication.
Well, thank you. And we are out of time. And I want to say thank you so much for this presentation, Graça. I think it gave me some great ideas to help improve ours. So all the attendees, if you would please,
you can always contact me.
Okay.
My email is here. You can always contact me, and I'll be glad to review anything that you need or to help you. We can set Zoom video conferencing also, and I can help in any way that you need.
Great. So don't forget to fill out the post-session survey, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.